Welcome back to room 171, affectionately known as Studio B. We're being a little bit self-indulgent here at the very beginning of this series, inviting some past and maybe some future students back to talk a little bit about their experiences here in Studio B. Our guest today is Cameron Taylor. Cameron was with me for just about 3 years as a dual enroll student and then returned as an adult. Went through a couple of different programs with various certifications. When we come back, we're going to talk to Cameron about just that. We're going to talk about the program, Florida Panhandle Technical College, a little bit. More importantly, and of which I am extremely proud, his present place of employment. He works for WTVY-TV in Dothan, Alabama. We're going to talk a little bit about what he learned in the class, how that may have contributed to his success where he's working now, maybe his outlook for the future, and more importantly, maybe some words of wisdom for those of you who may be interested in taking a closer look at this program. We're going to do all this and more when we return, and we will be right back. Welcome back. As mentioned, our guest today is Cameron Taylor. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
You didn't waste any time accepting our invitation, and I appreciate that. But you were one of my success stories, of which there are many, granted, but you have done extremely well and seeking employment and successfully doing so. If you don't mind, Cameron, let's start at the beginning. You have done a really good job in your end-of-term videos explaining your progress, your initial trepidation, nervousness, etc., and then how you eventually found your way. But for those who don't have the ability to see those, talk a little bit about how you found this school, what your present situation was at Poplar Springs at the time, and kind of trace that progression for us.
Right. Well, as you said, it's a story I've told like a million times at this point, and I love how I'm still sitting in the same exact studio telling the story again. But I was in high school. I was a junior, senior, and I was just thinking a lot about the future. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I always wanted to be in some field of content creation, some kind of media production. I always knew that was something I was interested in, and that it was something I wanted to do. Problem is, area we live, it's kind of, I'd say it's hard to come by those kind of jobs.
No man's land, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And early on, it was really a question of whether that was viable or not. And for a long time, I didn't think it was. So I didn't want to go to a university or anything like that. I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a physical therapist. I didn't want to be a astrophysicist. I like to think I'm a little bit simpler than that. And, I want to, do something a little bit closer to my level, I guess you could say. So I was looking at trades, and I was initially thinking about going to the pharmacy tech program right here at the school. Great program, by the way. Check it out if you're interested in that field. But decided that wasn't for me after some research. And I came upon the digital media program and the digital video technology program. Thankfully, I chose digital video technology because it sounded a little bit closer to what I wanted out of a career. And I popped in as a dual enrolled student on, I think it was August, maybe 10th or 14th, somewhere in there. And I didn't get to speak with you. I didn't get to have that hour-long session that you like to talk about beforehand. I just kind of popped in one day.
As a junior?
Yes, as a junior. Or, well, I'm trying to think. Yes, I was a junior because I came back the following year again as a dual enrolled. So I was a junior in high school at the time.
Yeah.
And
so as that junior, you attended half a day.
Yes.
You go here in the afternoons, if I remember correctly, and you did that for that school year.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what happened during that time and maybe your preconceptions and then maybe how reality.
All right. Well, preconceived notions going in was like, oh God, that guy's really loud. I I still struggle with I feel like communication sometimes and anxiety. But back then I feel like it was far worse. I don't feel like it was far worse. Um,
Well, you were young.
yeah, definitely that played into it. And I was like, oh God, I don't know if I could do this. This is a lot of pressure. Everything we were doing, you're very much held to task. And that was scary for me because I'd never really been in an environment like that before. High school is high school. You're not necessarily held to task 100% of the time. So it was just kind of scary coming up. And over the course of the year, I'd say that definitely got much, much better. You're forced into the hot seat, and that forces you to get out of your comfort zone. And that was insanely beneficial for me in the long run.
I often say, and I catch a lot of flack for it from parents and other teachers alike, and that's that my job is to make my students uncomfortable, which thereby makes them comfortable with being uncomfortable and better prepared for life. Because that's all that life is being able to face uncomfortable situations and making the best of it, and then definitely succeeding in those times. You mentioned that I was a little loud and overbearing, I guess. The difference between college, whether it's a technical college or a four-year college, and high school is that in the government-provided K through 12 school system, with the No Child Left Behind tenet, it's exactly that. When I was a kid, there would be children in everybody's class who were 2 or 3 years older than them because they didn't get it when they were in the third grade. They had to repeat the third grade. Might have done the same thing in the 10th grade. Well, no longer do we hold people back. We push them forward. Everybody gets a trophy, and everybody succeeds, or at least on paper, which is totally wrong, and I think somewhat disingenuous, because at the end of the day, I know the students' level of preparation when they get, or preparedness when they get to this class, and they're terrible in math. A lot of times they're terrible in reading and reading comprehension, in writing and vocabulary, all the things that you would think that they would get at home even before they started the school system, and then certainly be able to glean from that 12 years of K through 12. However, we do our best and we try to give remedial instruction, or at least opportunities to be able to. Did you feel that some of the things that you came into the class maybe a little bit light or weak on, that you definitely improved? And talk a little bit about that a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, self-professed, I'm horrible at math. I was terrible. It was the only subject in school that I was truly awful at. And I can say that confidently. In the real world, you will have to do math. It's simple. It's a simple fact. In my job now, I deal with numbers all day. Time, when certain things are going to happen. You need to be able to have basic math comprehension. And, I had basic math comprehension, but I was still very bad. So, going through some of those things in the class definitely helps a lot, and you learn, you can relearn those things through things in the class, like f-stops. That's a great way to kind of go through an exercise of multiplication, I guess you could say.
Talking about aperture when it comes to exposure in a camera, and all you have to do is multiply or divide by 2. I mean, it's as simple and basic as it gets. However, that's easy to say if you already know how to do it. And so do you feel that those exercises helped you in the long run?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So you were here for your junior year, and somehow you decided to return for your senior year. Was that a tough decision to make?
No, it was not, because I at the end of the first year, kind of got over my fears, learned like, hey, this is actually really hands-on, really intuitive, really fun. I like what we're doing. So no, it was not a hard decision to make to come back.
So at that point, it got very easy and you just skated through the rest of it.
Oh yeah, it was just it was still incredibly arduous, everything we did every day. There wasn't a single day I'd say that was necessarily easy. It's a new day every day. You come up with some of the most unique challenges for a student to face than probably any teacher I've ever met in my life. And you get that every day in here.
Well, we do run the class like a business.
Absolutely.
And that starts when you punch in the morning. You're either on time or you're late. Those are the only two options. If you're 30 minutes early, you're on time. If you're 1 minute early, I don't like that being cut so close, but you're still here on time and you're checking that box. If you're late, you automatically lose 30 minutes of time. So you might as well go take a walk, except that some of the most important stuff in the morning is done in that first 30 minutes, which is why I want you here to begin with. So hopefully people understand the students in that class, whatever that year class it happens to be, pretty quickly that it's not because that's the way I want you to do it. It's because that's what's necessary for you to be able to even cope, comprehend, and be successful with the rest of what is to come. One of my favorite expressions is dumping information by the 5-gallon bucket over your head. I don't expect you to absorb it all. I just want you to let it flow and hear the words. What does word of the day mean to you?
Pain, suffering, and it's word of the day was, I guess, an experiment, I'd say, to increase our word comprehension, basically, and our vocabulary skills in the long run. Just an exercise every morning where we would, have a list of words that we maybe had never heard before. But, define those words, use them all, learn what they mean, comprehend what they mean so that you can then expand your vocabulary, use them out in the real world.
Have you had to come in contact with any of those words ever?
Not to my recollection as of this point, but I will say the word, for some reason, the word mercurial is always in my brain for the rest of time from now on.
And what does mercurial mean?
I believe it means, I know what it means, but now I'm on the spot and I can't say it.
Easily provoked, or quick to explode.
To change.
Yeah, quick to
Yes,
change.
that's right.
But at the end of the day, it's about word derivation as much as it is the actual words. And even more than that, it was the fact that you had an email waiting for you every single morning of the class. You had to read the email more than once. You had to follow the directions. You had to work hard to get it all done because many times there was some type of a time constraint. Must be turned in by 9:35 or close of business or noon or whatever that number was, whatever that time was. And basically all of those things we're doing was to just mold you into a person that was more structured and didn't fear instruction. So you made it through your junior and senior years. You graduated Poplar Springs High School, and you decided to come back, which would have been foolish not to finish out your program. So at that point, you were in digital video technology, and you returned to finish the DVT program. Talk about from that point forward.
When I came back as an adult, actually, I think I came back. I think I finished DVT before that, and I came out for television production.
Okay.
I could be mistaken, but I came back for television production because after my second year, I felt like, I want to get out there and start doing things, but I still don't feel 100% confident. I want a little bit more. I want to soak up a little bit more, I guess is the best way I can put it. I want to feel a little bit more prepared. Not that I wasn't prepared, but just that I lacked confidence. And I felt that one more year was going to definitely give me the confidence I needed.
And did it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It gave me opportunities to get out and work with people who were completely unrelated to the class and led to bigger and bigger opportunities.
Had you not attended that third year or that second full class, and you had gone out and sought employment as soon as you graduated high school, would you have been able to do this job in Dothan at WTVY-TV?
No, because I would not have met individuals who led to that opportunity. And it's as simple as that.
You had a penchant for video. You were also a really good photographer, which all kind of works together. You're one of my success stories for sure, and there are many, and I'm very fortunate in that respect. Everybody's totally different. Everybody went different directions, but you are one of those former students of whom I am very proud. And it's just, you can't imagine what it's like to be a teacher, to be able to make a list of all of your successful students who are all now working in the industry or a related industry, an associated industry, or just simply are holding down a really well-paid job, starting a family, and are being successful at life. I like to think that these programs, regardless of the fact that they have to do with photography and video and television production and audio production and drones, that at the end of the day, the main reason is to prepare you for life. Whether you go on to a four-year college and go on to that veterinarian program, or you go to pharmacy tech after this program, you are better prepared for life. Am I wrong in that assumption?
No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, we do things that in this class that are not even necessarily related to the instruction material. I mean, like, we've done budgeting, we've done, kind of a rundown of how you do your taxes, and that is invaluable. I mean, as a working adult, because I mean, if you asked me 2 years ago how you file taxes, I wouldn't have a clue. If you asked me what a W-2 was, I wouldn't have a clue. And now, I'd like to think because of this class, I just filed my first tax return this last April. So I mean, like, that's incredibly valuable. Yeah.
One of the reasons that I am proud of you is that you are working in an industry for which you were prepared, and that is television. You can't get a job that's much more closely aligned with what we did here at the school than going to work for a real TV station, even if you're not in the creative end of building commercials or doing editing of TV shows. Talk a little bit about what you're doing now in the process that it took to be qualified for and to apply and get that job.
Well, qualifications for the job, I mean, I won't lie. They were definitely open to a lot of people. But the fact that I had video experience, I had experience with, editing softwares, which we do use. I had experience with a number of those things. I had done a few jobs as a camera person before that. And all of those things kind of played into why they hired me, I'd imagine. And it was pretty much, it's a huge part of what we do when we're actually on the job, which is we are basically newscast directors and master control operators. And it's kind of, I say it's like, it's one job, but you kind of have two functions. First function is master control. That's what you're going to be doing all day. You're ingesting shows that you get from syndication distributors. And syndication just means, a show that is aired not from the network. And by network, I mean like CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC, things like that. So we ingest those shows into our system, and we segment them. We make sure they have captions, make sure the audio is good, and then we check it, send it off, and it's like, yep, that's good to air. And that's kind of the first function of the job. And to play into that same portion, we make sure that the station is on time, because the TV is all about hitting times when they're supposed to be hit. So, you got to make sure we're going to hit network on time on multiple different channels, and, make sure that we're getting into our stuff on time, into our newscasts, into our syndicated programming, stuff like that. And that's a huge, huge portion of what we do. And then the second portion is we are all newscast directors. And we direct live shows from our studio. We take shows from our producers in the news department, and we decide what cameras are going to be used for what shots. The producers can only tell us what shots they're going to use. It's our job to put it together and kind of decide the function of how everything's going to work out. And we got 4 cameras in that studio, all robotic cameras that move based on our input in our control room. And we put these shows together in a rundown, and once we're done, it's time to go live. So those cameras all move on their own according to our input. We call it coding. It's not really coding in the way you would think, but that's what we call it. We code a show, and we go on air. If something goes wrong, it means you had bad coding. And I've been lucky enough to not have a show go wrong at least in a long time.
Would you say that attention to detail, following directions, working hard, and time management played any part at all into what you are tasked in doing?
All of the above, 100%, because there are times throughout the day when you're going to have a lot of things on your plate. We're checking shows, like I said. We're timing out our playlist system to make sure we're on time. We're ingesting commercials from our sales department that they have gotten from other clients. We're ingesting spots from our creative department, which they made. We got to do all that. We are at the business end of all of those things. And on top of that, the newscasts, like I said. So time management is a huge thing, and being able to itemize everything you're doing, break it down into digestible chunks. And I'd say time management is absolutely crucial, because when it's time for a newscast, and you essentially have 30 minutes to finish that newscast. You have 30 minutes from the start of that thing to the end to get it done and get it done right. So I'd say all of those things are extremely important, and that this class prepares you for those things. Absolutely.
And I contend that if those 4 things were the only thing that a student got out of this class, to the point where it allowed them to be better prepared for a job, we have to recognize the fact that our job is to prepare people for well-paid jobs. And if the preparation, the experience, the knowledge that they achieve here, and when I say knowledge, the knowledge of themselves, to be able to accept the fact that they have really terrible time management, or maybe that they're good at time management, but they do poorly at something else. It's all about self-recognition and self-improvement, to the point where you can walk into that potential job office or interview and present yourself in the best possible light, get that job, carry out the job by following directions and paying attention to detail and being on time. My job is done. Then at some point in time, you have to decide what you're going to be when you grow up, right? I haven't made that final decision for myself yet, so I certainly don't expect any student to be able to come up with that. I've reinvented myself 4 or 5 times in my 73 years, and when I'm laying on my final bed, I'm probably going to say, let's go again, because I have been fortunate enough to have that really wonderful life. It hasn't always necessarily equated to the dollars that it may have been, they could have been, but I've never been driven by money. So whether you follow your heart or your head, whether you just do what it takes to make yourself happy along with those around you, it doesn't really make any difference. I'm happy if somebody comes out of this program knowing the rudiments of what we teach, but more importantly, those basic life skills, those basic life functions. Some people say that I'm a taskmaster. I don't know where that comes from, but some people do allude to the fact that they feel for some reason that I'm a little tough as an instructor, as a teacher. You agree with that?
I would I don't necessarily agree, but you give tasks that I'd say are unorthodox at times, or can at least feel that way. And I always thought that was in an effort to really test just how well you could comprehend and complete a task. And that I cannot count the amount of times that I came out here to do something that was assigned to us, and I didn't realize a crucial detail, and it completely screwed me. And that's what it's all about. It's you really, really need to pay attention. It's not a joke. It's not we'll give you a mulligan on that one. It's no, it was written that way and you didn't see it. You need to pay attention. And whatever weird or unorthodox task it might be, taking a picture of an apple in 15 different places, which you will probably do at some point. You got to make sure you do it right. It's not about, I got to do all this different stuff. It's not about whether you get those things done. It's did you do it right, in my opinion.
So attention to detail, sort of a big deal.
Absolutely.
Not everybody gets a trophy. In my class, sometimes nobody gets a trophy. You will be reprimanded when you do something wrong, but it's not the end of the world because we immediately reset and we start talking about how you can improve, and it's not held against you going forward. And I don't give false praise. So early on in my teaching career, I felt almost bad that I was praising one student and I wasn't saying anything that was positive to the other students. And I realized that that's the way life is. Sometimes you do it right, sometimes you do it wrong. Just because you didn't do it wrong, that means that you deserve praise. The baseline is accomplishing the task. The praise, the reward, the trophy goes to those who go above and beyond, and those who are castigated or are reprimanded are the ones who, either through some failure of their own or misreading directions or whatever reason, they failed to perform the task. That said, do you feel that is a viable educational method? Do you feel that there was a value to that, or do you feel that I was unfair in the way that was taught?
Oh, no, I don't think it was unfair. I feel like I'm proof of that. I mean, I get to work, and you think this guy sends you a lot of emails. Wait until you get an actual corporate job. You will have thousands of emails to sift through every single day. It's not about trying to confuse you. It's not about trying to, hey, I got one over on you. It's no, because that's the way the world is. I don't think that's unfair at all.
So time management, huge, huge. And regardless of what you do from this point forward, even if you become a housekeeper, a housewife, a mother, a wife, or a husband and a provider doing whatever, you have to have good time management or it's just not going to work for you. What would you suggest to someone who is interested in the program, who comes in and sees all of this really cool stuff and says, man, that's the place for me. I get to play with all that stuff. How would you admonish them? How would you kind of ground them, bring them back to earth, and to give them a short but sweet message that would better define what they need to be aware of before they have that misconception?
My best advice is just, give it a shot. Give it a try. Nothing's going to hurt giving something a try. And for me, it was about, I'm very passionate about this. And if you have that kind of mindset, absolutely give it a shot. But be prepared to work hard. Be prepared to even disagree at times, because that's going to happen. Be prepared to work hard. Let yourself be confused sometimes. That's not a bad thing. But work through it with the notion that even though you're confused, you will not be later. That's the important thing. is that you will understand. You just have to have dedication. That's my best advice I can give in terms to, whether you should give this class a shot or not.
What does done is better than perfect mean to you?
Something that I've failed at many times, and that I'm intimately familiar with. Done is better than perfect just refers to, if you have an assignment and you need to have it done by a certain time, get it done. Even if you are a perfectionist and you want every little thing to be perfect, just get it done. Something that I absolutely struggled with in my time here, because I wanted everything to be perfect and I wanted to put in that extra effort. But that's not always what it's about.
Does that phrase hold you in good stead in your current employment?
Oh, absolutely. There are times when I'm throwing together a newscast and I'm like, holy crap, I just don't have any time to do anything that I need to do. This is going to just have to be short, sweet, and simple. And it now holds me in good stead, as I failed to here. But at my current employment, it definitely holds true.
And now you get it done.
Absolutely. Because there are consequences if you don't. Big consequences. And if that isn't driven home with you, it certainly will be wherever you go and are employed at.
Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. The reason for this podcast is to allow the folks who are going to watch this, who are watching live or watching it on demand, allowing them the knowledge that we have such a creative community here in Northwest Florida, whether they're artists or creatives, photographers, videographers, whatever the medium in which they work, they have a huge pool of very talented people, many who are in the rough and who just need a little tumbling in that rock tumbling machine, which my program serves the function quite well. We can knock some of the rough edges off, even the roughest of gems. But one of the bigger reasons is because the next step after we and we're going to continue to do this series, but the next thing is we're going to start a series of roundtables. We're going to invite 6 or 8 of these creative people, hopefully people who have joined us in the podcast, so that we at least know something about them, they know something about us, and have roundtable discussions, which we're going to film and then broadcast, to be able to compare notes about, okay, I'm self-employed, what are my tax issues that I'm facing? What are my marketing issues? What do I do with a hard to get along with customer? All of the things that go into, or in the case of folks like yourself, you work for a corporate entity. How can I make my life smoother working under the HR umbrella of today's corporate media? I want to tell jokes, but obviously not everything is politically correct. So just kind of an opportunity. Do you think that would be something that would be of value to the community? And do you think that's something that you might even consider being a part of?
Oh, yeah, because that's another thing I want to touch on is, like you say, roundtable, because that's what a lot of times the class here feels like, is having a kind of group of people that you can get some kind of output of what they're going through, or what they think about this, or what their opinion is of a certain thing is invaluable. Because having a second opinion in the creative world is absolutely everything. Because, I mean, that's your job at the end of the day, is to please other people. So getting a second set of eyes, or a third or fourth or however many, is absolutely invaluable, not just in what we do as an industry, as a photographer, videographer, whatever, but in life. So exactly like you said, getting that advice on certain issues creatives may be facing, that's absolutely invaluable. Yeah.
One thing that I thought was particularly effective in our class, and I'll get your opinion on that, is that when you were done with projects, we would show them on the big screen if it was a video. If it was photos, sometimes we would just pull them up on the big screen as well. And then we would all go around the conference table, and everybody would have to give some kind of constructive input. It could be criticism, it could be praise, but it wasn't enough to say, yeah, that looks good to me. You had to come up with something that showed that you recognized that there was either something well done or not well done. Do you think that was a value in that learning process?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just as a feedback device to identify your weak points. because, that was how I was able to identify and rectify a lot of my weak points, I feel like, in what we were doing. And I feel like other people were able to do the same, that wouldn't have happened had I not been in this environment with all these different people. So it's an extremely powerful tool to that end, I would say.
I think as much as the value was for your work to be critiqued was the expectation for you to offer constructive criticism of somebody else. Because for those who may have social anxiety, those who don't like to be speaking in public, don't want to get up and talk in front of a bunch of people, it forced you to do that in a safe environment. When we start the classroom year, I keep admonishing my students, don't worry about getting fast and don't worry about being creative. Pay attention, work hard, get it done. At what point did you find yourself acquiring speed and then ultimately creativity as part of that process?
Well, I'd say that it depends on what exactly it is in the class we're talking about, because as you'll learn, if you're interested in a class and you may want to come here, everyone has their own niche that they want to kind of duck into. Mine was video and video editing. I think that I was fairly fast and I was good at that. That's what I was good at. I didn't think I was very good at photo or setting up for lighting or things like that. So I'd say that question kind of the answer kind of changes depending on what it was. But in something like if I was asked to set up for a photo or something, no, you weren't expected to be creative, because it was just like, if I was tasked with that, I would just set up, 3-point lighting, gray background or something, and do it in like less than 5 minutes.
Check the boxes.
Yeah, check the boxes, exactly. But if you tasked us to come up with something creative, you can't use 3-point lighting, you have to use butterfly lighting with constant lights, and it has to be done in 3 minutes or something like that.
Sounds familiar?
Yeah. That was where the challenge really came in. Early on, you could skirt by just with the basics, but that's not how it's going to be the entire time.
I don't give false praise. I don't give praise when it's not due. But again, I'll repeat, you are one of my success stories, and I'm very proud of you. I'm watching your progress. We get to talk once in a while. Best of luck going forward. I hope that you will participate in the other projects that we have going here. Is there anything else that comes to mind worth saying before we close out?
Just, if you're a creative person in this area, no matter how creatively inclined or talented you think you may be, I highly recommend this class as a fantastic starting point, because it led to so many opportunities for me to be where I am now, and I am eternally grateful for that. So just give it a shot. Absolutely give it a shot if you are interested.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed the discussion and the conversation and the fellowship, and look forward to seeing you soon. Our guest today has been Cameron Taylor, student here in this program, a successful student, and just one of many of the successful students who are now in the workplace in well-paid jobs. If any of this sounds good to you, check us out. You can come shadow a program. And more importantly, keep your eye on this podcast. Room 171 is going to give you an opportunity to get a little insight into what we do here. And you never know who's going to show up in room 171. We'll be right back.